Welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset, Scotland's #1 health, fitness and entertainment podcast. Today we are talking about your goals, your fitness goals, whatever they may be. They all require an element of what's called progressive overload. Now I'll open up the conversation with, is it overrated? And sometimes it can be, so stay tuned for that. Before we get into this, there's two things to mention. Now, we spoke about on the last episode about training programs. In today's episode, we touch on that again. If you're interested in getting a structured training program that applies all of these progressive overload strategies that I mentioned in today's episode, you can get it for crazy cheap. You can get it for like £16 a week. The code for the promotion for this month is going to be in the show notes below. Also, if you're not quite ready to take the step in purchasing a program, don't worry, I have you covered as well. There's a free 30-day workout structure below as well. You'll see the link for that. Just click on the link and it will tell you to put in your details, and it will automatically send you a little email of a structure you can follow. And if you're new around here, I release episodes every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m. So make sure, if you haven't already, follow the channel, follow the page, so you can get notified when I release a new episode. But without further ado, enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy today's episode. So here's a gym myth for you. You do not need to keep adding weight to every exercise to get stronger, to build muscle, or to progress towards your goals. So we're back, fitness friends, with another episode. Fitness friends, that kind of just rolled off the tongue. I like that. That is the new name for you guys that listen to the show. But today's episode, we're diving into progressive overload. And it brought up the whole adding weights and adding volume, all this sort of stuff, which I'm obviously going to go into in today's episode. But adding weight and adding weight to all your exercises in general seems to be the move for any young lifter. And actually, I still see this with advanced lifters, where they keep pushing the weight, and then guess what ends up happening? They end up getting injured, they end up pulling a muscle, or just doing too much damage to their body. And that's what I want to open with. Like, adding weight isn't the only way to get stronger, to build muscle, to see progress when it comes to the gym. There is multiple other ways that I'm going to dive into and explain to you how you can implement them, whether you're a new gym goer or you're an advanced gym goer. Today's episode is hopefully going to give you a wee bit more food for thought on things that you can do to progress towards your goals, no matter where or no matter what they are. And that is a fair point to start on. Whatever your goal is when it comes to working out, you will probably be kind of falling into one of these categories, which we label as progressive overload. And simply put, it's just a way for our body to gradually get stronger or adapt to the stress that we're sending as we go later into our gym journey. So an easy example is like, you are in the gym. In fact, you probably faced this. You went into the gym. You're like, no chance I'll be able to do that weight, or no chance I'll look like this, and I won't ever have this much muscle. Well, in order to get that is your body progressing. That's your body adapting to the stresses that you've sent it to, and it goes way beyond adding weight, adding more reps, adding more sets, and adding more workout days. They're like the 4 common ones that you see people do. In fact, how many have I got here? Let me count it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we got 10 different ways that you can implement 1, 2, or maybe 3 of these strategies at one time, and it's going to help you get towards their goal. Now, I was doing a wee bit of kind of deep dive research in this topic, and one that came up was, is progressive overload overrated? And it was from Matt Vayner, out of all people, a strong motherfucker, a natural power lifter, lifting crazy numbers. And I never really thought of this take, but it is true. A lot of people think of progressive overload as kind of pushing the limitations of their body and always doing more week on week with a little break. We call this, when we are learning about our personal training and how to train you guys, we learn about mesocycles, which basically means that you build up progression week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and then week 5 you take what's called deload. Again, more foreshadowing. Don't worry, that's going to be in a new one of the next episodes that I do if you're not too sure on when to implement that. But that's what we sort of learn when we become personal trainers. And he brings up a very, very good point, that you can't do that forever. And an easy comparison is running. A good running program, when you look at it, to get better and more efficient at running longer distances in a faster time, you program X amount of percent of the lift. So it's all about managing stress, really, when it comes down to it. And this is the same in the powerlifting world. You don't just hammer 90% lifts and expect the next week you're going to be stronger. You're going to be stronger. I don't know why I hiccuped in my throat there. I don't know if that would be a nice sound to listen back to. But this does work at the start of your journey. You go into the gym one day, you come into the gym the next day, you are a little bit stronger because you have you're in the fortunate position of having those newbie gains. I wish I could go back to those days, but there is ways to tap into that. Again, we'll come back to that in a little sec. But there is a stage that most of us will get to where you can't just add weight on the bar. It just doesn't seem to work that way. You hit like an upper limit. And when you hit that upper limit, for us advanced lifters, we need to be a little bit more strategic in how we program. Now, if you follow a powerlifting program, they do... it's quite fascinating actually when you learn this sort of thing. You program some weeks at 65%, 70%, 82% of your total max lift. So let's say my max bench press is 100 kilo. I would do a couple of sets at 70% that particular week for various different reasons depending on what's going on. And by lifting that 70% weight, that is actually working towards me getting stronger. And I get the point that he's raising. I don't think it's overrated by any means necessary, but it's definitely misunderstood. And that kind of brings me on and kind of inspires me to make this podcast episode for you guys to get clear on the actions of what is progressive overload and how do we best maximize it, or how do we best program it when we are lifting inside the gym. Now, do you need it all the time? Probably not. I guess it links into the why you should follow a workout program on my previous episode. There is going to be times where you just want to go into the gym and exercise, and arguably, like whether you're following a program or not, something that I never said within that is tons of people get a lot of value just experiencing different types of movements, different sort of exercises. It definitely leaves a lot on the table. And a good conversation with Dan as well, and he's someone who sort of just kind of goes with the flow and experiences all these sort of functional types of movements, and that does well for his body. He's consistently training, and the argument I would make is you're probably being consistent in some form or manner, and that's where you're adding what's called progressive overload. So again, putting it simply, it is you sending a stress to your body where your body can adapt by getting stronger or adding more muscle mass in its simplest format. So let's break this down. How does this look in the real world? Well, within the real world, as I said, the four common ones is increasing the weight, increasing the reps, the sets, or the frequency of how many times you lift that week. So let's go with a nice standard example. Let's say you're squatting in the gym and you can squat 100 kilos. Let's say you're one of those people that you broke the ton mark, you broke the 100 kilo mark with your squat. Now, let's say you're someone who's following a workout structure, and the workout structure for that day is squats. You have 3 sets and you have to do between 5 and 8 reps, okay? So let's say you go into the gym that day, you hit squats, you do 5 reps at 100 kilos, 5 reps at 100 kilos, 5 reps at 100 kilos. That gives you 15 reps in total at 100 kilos, and it's a pretty good lift if you can do that. Bravo. If you can't do that, here, weight is all... I was going to say it's an illusion. It's not. It's all subjective. It's subjective to where we're at in our lifting journey. Now, progressive overload would be the next time you go into that training program, the next time you go around to that workout day, your goal over those 3 sets is to try and hit 16 reps in total, whether that be 5 at 100, 5 at 100, and then 6 at 100, or 6 at 100, 6 at 100, 6 at 100. It doesn't necessarily matter. One extra rep the next workout you go into will be classed as progressive overload, and that's how your body adapts and gets stronger and is more receptive to overcoming the stress that you send it. So you can see where that has a shelf life. You can get burnt out really, really quickly being in that mindset. Now, the flip side of this would be, I guess it's a powerful reason why I program rep ranges. Now, you hear the whole 8 to 12 rep range, and I've only kind of had an epiphany this week where I was like, you know what, 4 reps is it's a bit much, isn't it? I don't know why we don't like to program the odd number. So to piss all my clients off, I'm going to start programming reps between 9 and 11 just for the fun of it. No, but seriously, it kind of brought me back to 3 reps within a rep range is probably the sweet spot. So let's say the example 5 to 8. If you get 5 reps, or you're doing an exercise and you can't reach those 5 reps, then I would want you to reduce the weight, because in the program that I've designed for you, you can't reach the rep range that I'm trying to get you to hit. Now, what happens when you hit the 8 rep range? So let's take the squat example where we've got 100 kilos on the bar. We hit 8 reps at 100 kilos. Should we do more if we can do more? In this example, no, because the program requires 5 to 8. But what that does mean is you have a decision to do another set at 8 or increase the weight to the next weight up. And that is the next option that most people will go to, is increasing the weight that they use in the gym. When I used to do inductions in Gym 24, no joke, I must have done over 100 inductions within the first couple of months. I was bringing people in through Instagram. I was meeting people on the floor, and I was just hungry to interact with so many people as I possibly could. And most of these guys, when I asked them, I was like, "What is it you do in the gym?" I do the same machines, the same routine. And I thought to myself, right, cool. At least they're kind of doing something. But the common thing was, when I asked, like, how much is it you do? What is your programming? And they'd be like, oh, just 10 reps on that. 10, the magic number of 10. It's like the 10,000 steps. And that is why most people plateau, because they're doing 10 reps, they increase the weight, 10 reps, increase the weight. You get to a time where you cannot increase that weight anymore for the rep range, for the reps that you're doing. So straight reps, there is times and places within your program for it. But when it comes to being a wee bit more smarter with your try to achieve this goal of stronger, leaner, faster, whatever it may be, more powerful, then having ranges is a better approach. Because if you have 3 reps to work between, rep 5, rep 6, rep 8, you can work through those reps, and when you hit the top rep range, that gives you more confidence that you can increase the weight. That is a massively overlooked thing, especially when you're doing something like a squat. Putting the weight up, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I can do that. Well, if you can do 3 sets at 8 reps with that weight, I know for a fact you can do 5 by going up to the next bit of weight. So let's move on to the weight. The number one mistake so many of us make when we're increasing the weight on a lift, especially the guys out there, we just stick another 10 or another 20 plate on. Like, what the fuck is that about? That blew, like, why do we do that? I remember back in my early lifting days, it was like, right, just stick an R10 on instead of sticking 5. I vividly remember working out with my mate at the time. We were training in Aquatech in Motherwell, and we're using the Smith machine because we don't quite like the free weight stuff yet, only because we sucked at it. So using the Smith machine, it's like, put a 10 on, put a 10 on, put a 10 on. And I seen him struggling when we put this 10 on. I was like, why don't we put like a 5 on? He's like, nah, that's for gimps. And you're just stuck in that egotistical mindset. It's like, it looks better, big chunky plates. But the biggest overlooked part when it comes to adding weights is you have, in fact, I'm going to get it for you guys that are watching. Oh, here we go. You have these tiny plates, right? If your gym doesn't have these plates, find a new gym, because you're leaving gains on the table by not maximising these. But particularly this one, the 1.25 kilo. Now, your gym, if you've got a serious powerlifting gym, you might have 0.5 or 1 kilo plates. Fair play to you. I've not even bought them from my own studio yet, but yeah, get a new relationship with factory weights. I need to give them a shout out here and maybe purchase some. But if you see someone using these tiny little plates, then you know they are taking their training a wee bit more seriously. They've got good programming, and they're leaving their ego at the door. If I've got 60 kilo on a barbell, and then, yeah, it might look cool to put an R20 on, but why would I put 20 on when I haven't benched 100 kilo or squatted 100 kilo in a long time? I want to move up the next increment of that unknown territory and work on getting the reps in that, if that makes sense. And this is the same for you guys that have maybe fallen away from your training program. Okay, once upon a time you might have been able to lift 160. In fact, I seen it with James's training. He just went in at 180 because he could. But why would you go in at that high rep? I know we're kind of feeding the ego at the same time, and it's nice to know that we can still do it. But if you're following a structure in a training program and you have a rep range, you got 5 to 8, you hit 100 kilos. I don't care if I know I can hit 120 kilos. When I hit that top rep range, I'm going to go up to 102.5 kilos. Sounds like a radio station. I'm going to go up to 102.5 kilos. And then try and hit the 8 rep range. If I hit it again, I move up to 105 kilos. If I hit it again, I move up to 107. And that's how you properly progress throughout your gym. So if your gym has the 1.25 kilos or the 2.5 kilos, these are honestly your best friend. And I'm going to call out my brother here because I take care of his programming. And I moved him into a strength phase as of today. And he was messaging me, what workout should I do? I was like, do day 2, yada, yada, yada. I was like, look, I've programmed 2 to 5 sets. We're going heavy on this one. Not been going heavy in your strength phase for a little while. So take it easy. This motherfucker goes into the gyms like, right, last time I done a strength phase was like 6 months ago. So I'm just going to go in and go ham. And I'm like, no. When you enter into a strength phase, particularly like a 2 to 5 rep range, let's say you could hit 100 kilos, just for easy math's sake, I want you to go in and hit 70% and start at the 70% mark. And this is where the powerlifting element of programming can come in, because it's going to fuck you because your body needs to adapt to the newfound stimulus that you're sending it. And this is another mistake people make when they're just adding weight. They've fallen away from their workouts for a few days, or they're away on holiday and they come back to it and boom, they go ham in their workouts. We all make that mistake. You want to do less at the start and gradually build on that, and that's how you properly progressive overload. I thought I was going to mess that one up, but managed to stick through it. So weight and reps, they're the first 2 that most people go to. The next thing's volume, and volume is a wee bit bastardized when it comes to strength training, building muscle, getting lean, getting in shape. And volume does have to increase week on week, whether you're running, whether you're doing a high rocks sort of prep. This is something I noticed that week 1, I couldn't run a 10K, but why would I go straight in at that 10K? I need to work up to that. So week 1 was like a 2K. Week 1 was 2K, so 4K in total. Next week, the total volume for the week was 6. The next week, it was 8. The next week, it was 10, or trying to hit 10. And that's the way you want to look at volume. So your volume is kind of worked out as your sets times your reps times your weight. So let's say you've done 3 sets of 10 reps at 100 kilo. That would be 300 kilo of volume when it comes to your squats or your leg exercises. Different ways to program this. Some people program movement patterns, which is the best way, by the way. Other people program their muscle groups and all that. And to be honest, there's no right or wrong way. It comes down to preference. But if you're looking to progressively overload your volume, which is really the key, is one of the key parts of the best places to start, I would say, it's trying to increase one of them. So that's why I was saying the sort of weight, the reps and the frequency seem to be the go-to places of this. And I guess that counters like volume is all 3 of them. So frequency, it's another one to kind of work up to, but frequency, I'd probably say, isn't utilised as much because, well, I tell a lie. When we're younger and we've got more time in our hands, there is a muscle group that we all want to grow, and that muscle group gets butchered. We batter that muscle group 3, 4, 5 days in a row if we could. But this is where we need to listen to our body, and we also need to rest. The more muscle mass that we end up building, the kind of more we have to rest in as time goes on. So they're the key ones that everyone knows when it comes to progressive overload. But what is some of the other ones that gets overlooked? Now, my favourite one, and it's rarely utilised, and to be honest, it's been a while since I've programmed this. I'm trying to think of the last client that I actually programmed this for, but utilising rest times. 2 sides to this, okay? So usually the adrenaline junkies that are out there, some of you guys are listening to this, you love boom, 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 rattling right through your workouts. The best thing for you guys to do is actually take longer rest periods and try and push heavier weight, okay? Most of us will stick to 2-minute, 3-minute routine. In fact, tell a lie, most of us don't even follow a rest time, and that's the first step in this. Look at your program, and what I would say is take more rest between the exercises, but when it comes to the sets, keep a standard rest time. Start with a minute, start with 2 minutes, whatever it is you want to do. Do that for a phase of training. Do that for 4 or 5 weeks. And then when you move into the next phase, don't change anything. Don't change. Well, you might need to adapt the weight. This is a thing that needs to kind of accommodate. Make sure you're hitting the same rep ranges and reduce the time spent on them. And you'll see a big difference in terms of your body getting stronger and just utilising different energy systems to get you through that workout. And it's a good little tool, a good little lever to pull on, especially for fat loss clients, because you can grind it out, you can push a wee bit more weight and all that sort, or you can push a wee bit more volume by increasing the stress in between each of the workouts. So, like I say, most of us are on our phones, and see if you actually time your workouts, you're probably more efficient when you get through it, more efficient getting through it. So time your sets, start there, combine that with either the reps or whatever way you go. If you take longer rest periods, then the rep range that you're in, you'll see the weight go up. If you take less rest periods, you'll see the weight come down, but your reps you might want to put your reps up, if that makes sense, or keep the reps the same and just go with the shorter rest periods. Now, the other one is my favourite one. This is a phase I start most people on. If you're new to the gym, you're always going to get stronger no matter what you're doing, because you go into the gym, as I said, and you pick a weight, you go into the gym the next week, you're stronger. It's that simple. But I like combining technique. Technique is an overlooked phase, and you might think that's not really progressive overload. Well, it absolutely is. Like, you're not going to go into playing a sport and just start playing. You're going to practice, you're going to train, and that's the way you should train when it comes to exercises. And I'm going to pause right here. I don't know if you can hear me, but there's a croaking coming from my stomach. I think I've had too much coffee today, but apologies if you hear that. So how do we work on the technique? Well, there's 2 progressive overload strategies that we can do. We can slow it down and we can add a pause. Best place to start is probably using both of them, but if you want to pick one, pick one. I would say the slowing down is the one that I would love to see more people do in the gym. If I could have a magic wand and go, bada-dee, bada-boo, I don't know what the Harry Potter lines are, but you just wish it and everybody follows it, then it would be to slow their shit down. We are too quick in the gym, chasing the pump, chasing the contraction, and most people's goals are to get bigger muscles, and that's what they think is going to help them there. It will for a certain period of time, but if you spent more time on slowing it down, so let's take the squat for example, really slowing it on the way down, pausing at the bottom, driving back up, not only will you get stronger quicker, you will build more muscle quicker as well. Now, pause reps is, I wouldn't even say it's an advanced training strategy. It's probably one that we should be doing more of at the start of our journey when the weight's lighter. And that's exactly when I use it for clients. So there might be times, more often than not, if you train between 5 and 8 o'clock, where your gym is packed, right? And you can't get the weight that let's say you're trying to go up it to the next dumbbells, they're not available. What do? Do you stay stuck with the 10 kilo dumbbells, or do you jump up to and go to the 15 kilo dumbbells? Well, before you do that, I would say slow it down. So let's say it's a bench press, dumbbell bench press. So it'd be slowing the way down, and then pause for 2 seconds, pause 2 to 3 seconds, and then explosive on the way up. Use that strategy when you can't quite go up in weight, or you're not confident to go up in weight. Back to what I said earlier, if you hit 3 sets of 8 reps and you still aren't confident to increase to the next minimum weight up, then add pauses and add slow and controlled reps. You'll see more confidence when it comes to increasing the weight for that movement. Now, another one, I don't know if many people will agree with me on this one, but range of motion on a technique is a way of progressive overload. Again, we're going to stick with the theme of squatting here. If you always just squat to 90 degrees and come back up, then that's going to serve you. You're going to build strength. You're going to build muscle around the areas that you're strengthening that movement pattern. But if you go work on your mobility and get ass to grass and get lower, you might not be as strong in that range of motion, but building strength in that untested range of motion, starting with the barbell, working up to 20 kilos, 22 and a half, 25, 27, 30, you will build new muscle tissue, you will get stronger, and you also feel better because you're strengthening a full range of motion, you're strengthening your actual mobility patterns that we can access in whatever movement it is. Now, I remember this vividly with bench pressing. If anyone has a similar journey to me, you'll laugh at this one, because when you're a wee guy and you're benching, we just want to get the weight up as quick as we can. And I know there's a good few of us listening to this that are still doing this to this day. So this might check you, but it's a hard one for your ego it's a hard pill to swallow, because who wants to go lighter? And going lighter, this is a case for it. So I remember bench pressing, and I got up to my first 100 kilo bench press, and I was about, 2 inches off my chest, maybe even 4 inches off my chest, but I was strong in this upper half of the bench press. And me and my mate went to this little spit and sawdust gym in Motherwell, and it was full of bodybuilders, full of hardcore drug dealers and just big juiced out cunts. And this was back in the natural days as well, but I felt good. I could hit 100 kilos. And this guy came up to us, the owner. He was like, "Good lifts, lads." He's like, "What's your goal?" He's like, "Why'd you bench?" And I was like, "Well, what a bigger chest, obviously." And he goes, "Right, I'm going to give you a tip here. It's my favourite tip to give you." So I'm listening. I'm a wee guy at this point. I'm like, "Please tell me, this guy's massive. He's going to give me the secret to building a bigger chest." And he said, "Slow it down and touch the bar on your chest." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I thought, like, what's that wee extra 2 inches, 3 inches going to do? He said, "Range of motion is one of the things that builds most amount of muscle." And that always stuck with me. And weirdly enough, seeing the bodybuilding space, range of motion is, I would say, for the most part, butchered, because it's quick pumps and they can get away with it because they're advanced lifters and they can really connect and squeeze to the muscle groups. But that stuck with me, and I was like, right, okay, I'll give it a try. No word of a lie, by going full range of motion on my bench press, I literally seen progress week on week on week. I was so strong in this upper part of my bench press from doing like half rep pull-ups, press-ups, and all these different things, that when I'd done that, it was a hard shift, because I tried to take the 100 kilos and I lowered it to that extra bit, and I had no strength in that. And I was like, fuck. And I tried 60 kilo. Again, struggled. So I had to drop down to 40 kilo, and then I'd work up 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And over the space of, like, I can't even remember, I'd be lying if I could give you probably a couple of months, I got the 100 kilos, and then I got 105, 110, and I got 120 at the age of 19, 20 years old, which was an amazing achievement, only because me and my mate were trying to do it, see who could get there first, and I beat him with it. So that again fed into my ego. But range of motion on a movement is another one of my favourite ones to work on. I'm a big advocate of compound lifts in general, and then teaching the technique and the range of motion, then adding in slow and controlled reps, pause reps. This really is what unlocked my own training when I was a young guy and allowed me to build more strength than I ever could. I hit this plateau, and you shouldn't hit plateaus at the age of 18, 19. You're still so fucking new to lifting weights, but I'd hit this brick wall because my range of motion was shit, and all I cared about was putting weight up every single week. As soon as I added in a pause rep on my bench press with lighter load, as soon as I worked on my mobility and my range of motion, my strength skyrocketed, and with strength comes muscle gain as well. Okay, another one of my favourite ones to do, changing the exercise. Keeping the theme of squatting, there's going to be a bit of a plateau, a bit of a fatigue when you're doing the same exercises. Even just the mental capacity to go, fuck me, man, I cannot be arse squatting today. And it's good to do. I like to try and do it before that fatigue kicks in, because you want to enjoy your training, you want to have fun with it, and it'll come on to another point when it comes to phasing your programs. But this ties into everything that we're really, really talking about, and how best to apply different approaches throughout your training journey. So in this scenario, squatting, to me, being the gym connoisseur, the personal trainer, the coach that has access to all these different reasons why we would use certain exercises, if I'm squatting all the time, that's a lot of barbell stuff. It's a lot of what we call bilateral movement, which is just this singular up and down, both feet squatting at the same time. So I would swap that with an exercise that is unilateral, like a walking lunge or a Bulgarian split squat. You could swap it up for another bilateral movement like a leg press, but changing up the exercise changes up the stimulus, and then there's a new learning curve to learn a new exercise, challenge your range of motion, work on your slow and controlled reps, start your weight off at a lower reps, or start your weight off with a lighter load, and then gradually increase it. You can sort of reset the journey of where you've taken your squats to by applying all of these progressive overload strategies. So changing exercises can be great, but sometimes just changing your programming in general, especially in today's world, we've got so much functional training, going into a bodybuilding split, coming out of that, moving into a strength training split, coming out of that, going into a hardcore powerlifting split, coming away from that, going into a strongman split, coming away from that, going into a high rocks training split, hybrid athlete, running, circuits, CrossFit. There's so many levers to pull on, and okay, your goal might be to get stronger, but see if you expose yourself to different training modalities, you're going to be stronger, right? You might not be, you might lose a bit of strength on that movement, but it doesn't quite go away forever. And the downside of trying to get stronger all the time, your joints can take a beating, and this is why so many guys have injuries, because they're so stubborn and will not shift from their camp. Like the powerlifters, there's so much value in some bodybuilding training. There's so much value in the high rocks training. There's so much value in functional type training, mobility work. Yet so many of these different camps are so stubborn and don't see the value of any of the other ones. And the truth is, it's all valuable. Exposing yourself to little bits and bobs of it in your training is what's going to keep you dialed in towards your goal. And I would make that argument for the powerlifters. So a powerlifter doing a 10-week split, like you could train as a powerlifter for 9 months of the year. I would want you to train at least 3 months a little bit differently, working on your mobility, working on different strength components, unilateral work, all these sort of things to keep you overall strong and healthy. Because we see it, especially in powerlifting, it's got a look, when you think about it, as big fat people. That's really what it's seen as, but it's shifting in a different direction, which is pretty cool to see. Okay, and the last one I wrote down here is the order of exercises. So let's say I'm squatting and I've got a couple other accessory movements. How we program that can actually change up the stimulus of that workout. So if I'm going into my squats, arguably I don't want to be too fatigued, but there might be a phase block of my training where I program walking lunges and I program the leg press, then I program my squats. And this is just another way to keep it fresh and sort of mix it up. You're going to hear the argument that our muscles are stubborn to grow and get stronger and we need to shock the muscle. This is an element in how we do that. It's not by giving it like a huge scary fright, but just changing up what it's adapting to, because our bodies are fascinating machines. They adapt to the stresses that we send it. So if you're always squatting and then you go into that third workout day and you're supposed to squat, you've been squatting for the last 6 weeks, and you go into that workout and you do something different, your body's a bit in, it's not in shock. It's not like, my God. It's just like it's a different stimulus of what you're sending to it, and through that new stimulus, there's new adaptation processes which ultimately result in more muscle tissue and more strength, CNS fired up, a more fired up CNS response. So there we have it, fitness friends. I'm going to keep with that one. That is all the different ways you can progressively overload. Now, you are not going into the gym and going, right, fuck it, I'm going to do 10 different progressive overloads this week. There's not a need for that. The best way to break this down is what I like to call phasing your workout programs. I don't know if it's as common or it's getting more popular, but it was something I seen very little when I started personal training. It was something I was exposed to in training programs that I used to buy. Even when I done my bodybuilding show, I would do the same split for 6 to 8 weeks out, or for 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and it just got a bit tedious. Now, phasing your workout program is how you change any of these stimuluses, because if you change it too much, how do you know it's working, right? So bringing it back to that, when you're doing different phases, stick to 2 or 3 things. So if you're going to phase your workout programs, have a set rep range, okay? Remember, pick 3 rep ranges. So do the 5 to 8, do the 2 to 5, do the 8 to 11. Seems awkward, but try it. Try the 15 to 18. There's so many different ones that you can do. And I'd probably say, see with that one, maybe make it 5 because it's lighter weight and all that sort of stuff. Hopefully you know what I mean. But pick a rep range And within that rep range, you're going to have a weight component where you're going to work through that. But add in something else. So pick one of the other ones. So keep the work on the time between sets and the tempo that you're going to stick to. Stick to that phase of training for at least 4 to 6 weeks, 4, 5 or 6 weeks. Then when you move into a different phase, look at a different adaptation process. So you can look at changing the exercises, and that's the only change you need to make for that next phase. When you move on to the next one, maybe change the reps. When you move on to the next one, change the order of exercises. When you move on to the next one, change the exercises. You get what I mean? So this is what keeps it nice. It keeps it new. It keeps it fresh. And if you're someone that doesn't want to constantly think about this, then look, hit me up. I love programming, and that's why I have a 6-month starting strong program. This isn't just for beginners, it's for everyone when it comes to the gym, and it utilizes every single one of these that I've just ran through. So again, there's a promotion running this month. If you're interested in it, it's £16 a week, which is buttons. In fact, I think it's even less. I think it's like £14 a week, and you can cancel at any time. You can pay monthly, you can pay in full. So many different payment options for you, but check the code out in the link or in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this, and get yourself a program. Now, if you want a free program to follow for 30 days, there's going to be a link to that as well. It's going to be in the show notes. Download it, try it out, and see how you get on with just following a structure. Ultimately, you cannot progressively overload to an extent if you're not following a structure. That's why these two go hand in hand, and you can see why it's not done in one episode, because it is too much to try and cram into one episode. But hopefully it gives you a bit of food for thought. So if you've got a goal, you need to be applying some method of training when it comes to this fancy word called progressive overload, or PO, it's referred to in the literature. So let's recap. What have we gone over? We've gone over the volume part of progressive overload, which is your reps, the weights, the sets. All of them combined gives you your total volume. If that's increasing week on week, you are progressively overloading. You can do more reps, you can do more weight, you can do more sets, you can do all three, and you're working towards that goal. That is the common ones. We then moved on to the time between sets, so how long you take for rest, and that doesn't mean shortening the rest times, it also means increasing the rest times as well. Slowing the reps down, changing the tempo, as I like to call this one, and pausing at the bottom where you're manipulating where you're going to hold that movement. That touches on a bit of isometric training, which is a great way of getting stronger, building muscle, helping you getting towards your goals. After that, it was working on the technique of an exercise. Then we moved on to the range of motion within an exercise, changing the exercise, order of exercises, and then the overall phased part of the training. So I believe that's 10. It might be a wee bit shorter, might be a wee bit longer, but 10 ways sounds a wee bit better anyway, doesn't it? So 10 different ways you can adapt your workouts to get stronger, to get fitter, to get more jacked, lean, muscular, whatever the goal is. Apply one or a few of these methods and you'll see results towards that. So thank you for joining us in another episode of Bulletproof Mindset. And before I wrap up, I just want to say thank you. One of the next episodes I'm going to do is a Q&A episode. So if you're listening on Spotify, do me a huge favor, ask me a question, even if you know the answer to it, but ask a question that your friends are maybe asking or you hear in your circle. There'll be a little question box that pops up. Ask that on Spotify. If you're not on Spotify, head over to my Instagram at Coach Crossar, and you'll see me throw up a little poll from time to time. Ask the questions in there or shoot me a DM as well. Make sure you're following the podcast page at Bulletproof Mindset __ and enjoy the rest of the day of whatever it is you're getting up to. And I'll see you on the next one.